Hi, welcome to Walking in Authority with Heather Smith. Tonight, I want to talk to you about faithful in the wait. I know that sometimes we can want things or God can tell us things and then we think that it's going to happen right then, or we expect it to happen right then. And a lot of times that's just not how it is. Sometimes there is. Sometimes God gives us something and it happens just like that, right? And then sometimes God gives us something and he's not quite ready for it to happen yet, but it will happen. And I just want to talk about being faithful in that wait, because I know it can be hard. I know that whenever God gives you something and at first you're like, I don't know, man, I don't know if I can do it. And then you begin to say, okay, yeah, I got this, I can do it. But then it just doesn't seem to be falling into place. And I'm going to use my own personal experience to talk to you about that. So in 2017, God gave me the vision to open a women's home. And when I first got that vision, I wasn't sure. I kind of like chuckled it off and laughed about it because I myself had never been in a women's home. I had been through things in my life. I had experienced things in my life. And I just didn't think that I was capable, I guess. I didn't think that I was the one that should open a women's home. I was like, Lord, I've never been in a women's home. And I felt like he was like, I know. He was like, I know. And you're going to be great at it. And it's going to be amazing. Whenever I first got that vision, or God first, gave me that, it was in a moment of hurt and pain. I had lost one of my great friends. She was more like a sister to me. And it was after her life was tragically taken that God gave me this vision to open this women's home in her honor. And I didn't believe that I could do it. I didn't feel very capable or very worthy or very qualified for that. And so I just brushed it off. And I was like, nah, well, that just sounds silly. That's probably you yourself, Heather, just making that up in your mind. And that's just silly. So the thought was there and it like kind of left, and it went away for a while. And then it was a few years later, I don't know, probably 2020. And this vision began to come back to the forefront of my mind. And I was like, God told me that I was gonna have a women's home one day. And so I began to seek out my healing, and heal from the things that I had been through in my life. The domestic violence, the trafficking, addiction, just different things that I had experienced in my life. And through that healing and through realizing that my past was not something that I could use as a crutch for the rest of my life, that my past was something that was going to qualify me for who God had called me to be, I began to start to believe that I could do it. I was like, I can do this. God makes no mistakes, right? He wouldn't give me something without knowing I could do it, or without creating me for that purpose and to walk into that calling. And so I began to heal. And even in that healing, I had those moments of doubt, those moments of, or other people, like you tell somebody sometimes your big dream and this vision that God gave you, and some people are excited and they're like all about it and they're rooting you on and they're like, you can do this. I totally believe in you. And then you have other people that are like, girl, that takes a lot of money. How are you going to do that? Or girl, you really think you can do that? Girl, that sounds silly. And I normally, the old Heather, or the Heather before I began the healing process, I would have been like, you know what, that you're right. That probably does sound silly. I don't think I can do it. But whenever somebody would tell me things like that, I would be like, well, God can do anything. Like, God's capable of anything. And I just continued to believe and know that no matter what I didn't understand about it, or no matter if I didn't understand the how, the when, the who, the what, where this provision, where this money was going to come from, I still spoke that. I still said, I will open Miranda's Place. I will have Miranda's Place. Miranda's Place will be a thing. And I just stood on that. I stood in that. There were moments and even seasons throughout the last, that was 2017, 18, 19, 20, 22, 23, 24, almost 8 years. In April, May-ish of 2025 will be 8 years. There was definitely moments and seasons throughout those years that I was doubtful, that I didn't think that I could do it. It was taking a long time, Maybe God changed his mind. Maybe I did something that upset him, and now he's like, oh, never mind. She's not going to do that. And it was hard. It was hard. There was many tears, many prayers. But amongst all of that, amongst all of the tears and amongst the prayers, I still spoke out of my mouth, I will have Miranda's Place. People would ask me, how? I don't know. When? I don't know. With who? I don't know. I didn't know a lot. I just knew. I knew that I was going to have this home. Not me, but that God, because it's God's. It's God's vision. It's God's women's home. It's all God's. I'm just the steward of it. I'm just the one that God chose to steward this home that he had. And even whenever people didn't believe it, even whenever people doubted it, I still believed, I still talked about it, I still prepared myself for it. I remember years ago sitting down and writing what a day was going to look like in Miranda's Place. And at moments I thought, well, this is silly. Why are you writing this down? But I did it. I did it anyway. I wrote down what each day would look like. What was some of the things I was going to help these women with? What would a week look like? And it didn't make sense to me at that time, because even though I knew it in my heart, my flesh, my mind doubted it at times. And so let me just tell you what Miranda's Place is. So Miranda's Place is a women's home for women who have overcame, currently in, going through, recently got out of a domestic violence situation or sex trafficking. And the name Miranda's Place comes from a very good friend of mine named Miranda, and her life was tragically taken in 2017. And it was very shortly after her life was taken that God gave me that vision. And I've had people ask me, well, was Miranda in a domestic violence situation or a sex trafficking? No, but it was her love for Jesus and how much she loved Jesus and wanted to share that with everyone. She wanted everyone to know how much Jesus loved them, and she wanted everyone to know just how awesome they are, and that they themselves had a purpose, and they were incredible. I'm sorry, my nose itches. So that's just a little backstory about Miranda's Place. I'm not going to really go too into detail with that. That's for another time. But I want you to understand that whenever God gives you something, he gives you a dream, he gives you a vision, he tells you that you're going to do something, he tells you that something's going to happen. But here you are months, years later, and you start to think, well, maybe it's not going to happen. Maybe it won't happen. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I didn't hear God right. Maybe God changed his mind. Maybe I wasn't who I thought I was. All of those thoughts begin to run through your mind, and you begin to doubt yourself. You begin to doubt what God told you. You begin to doubt your purpose, your calling. I get it. I fully and 1000% get it, because those are all thoughts that ran through my mind. Those are all thoughts that I thought about over the years. But even though I had those thoughts, I held on to it. I held on to that dream. I held on to that vision. I knew that I was going to have this women's home. And I didn't let those thoughts, I didn't let what anybody else had to say about it affect me. You know, in 2023, I had a gala. And I just knew that I was going to raise all this money. I just knew that it was going to happen. I knew that once I raised this money, that I was going to be building this home, right? I knew that. Like, I just knew that. Well, the gala came and there was hardly any money raised. I put more money into it than what I got back out of it, or that Miranda's Place got back out of it. And I was really discouraged there for a minute. But I remember Miranda's dad telling me, he said, I feel like this is going to be the seed house. And he was like, I don't know what that means. And I was like, well, I don't either. And at this moment, I didn't know how much money I had raised that night. And it was only like $300 and something. I still had to come out of my pocket almost $800 or more to pay for the food that we had ate that night. And so I remember going outside the door and I just cried and cried and cried. And I was like, God, I know you told me that I was going to have this home. I know you told me that this home was going to open up. I know that you told me these things. But I got really discouraged. I was like, I don't understand. Like, what is this? What's happening? I don't get it. But then it's like Holy Spirit reminded me of the things that other people that were at this gala came up to me, and the other ladies that had helped me do this, the other speakers, the things that they had told us, how it changed their life. It made them feel like they were needed in this world. It made them feel important and capable and worthy. And then I remembered what Miranda's dad said about it was a seed house. And I was like, okay, well, I might not have raised the money that night, but lives were changed, including the women that helped me put on this gala, the other speakers that were there. It completely changed our lives as well. And it's like I knew that even though it didn't happen in that moment, that it planted that seed. It planted that seed for letting people know who Miranda was, her heart, her passion, and what Miranda's Place was going to be about. And so I did go through a season and I became very depressed and very discouraged. However, by the grace of God, I was able to pick myself back up and continue to move forward with the idea of Miranda's Place and just trusting and believing that it was going to happen. Even in the moments of doubt when I didn't truly necessarily believe it in that split of a second, because my flesh or the enemy was trying to tell me otherwise, I still held on to it. I still held on to that dream. I still talked about it. I still said, this is going to happen. And I still got the how and the when and the where. And I was like, I don't know. I just know that God is a mighty God and he can do anything. And I just held on to it. I held on to it and I still believed it in the tears, in the doubt sometimes, in the doubting me. Never did I doubt God. Not one time did I doubt God. I doubted myself. I doubted my worthiness. I doubted my ability to hear God right, but I didn't doubt him. I had moments of doubting myself. And it was hard. It was heavy. I second guessed what my calling was for. You know, could you even do that? Could you even do something like that? Are you even capable of doing something like that? And it's like the more and the deeper I dove into my relationship with God, that authority and that confidence began to come back. And I knew that this is exactly what I was going to do, that God was going to make it happen. That not on my time though, not whenever I thought it should happen, but whenever God was ready for it to happen. Because honestly, if this home would have opened last year, whenever I had that gala, if it would have opened just then, I wouldn't have been ready. And other people that are stepping in to help me with this wouldn't have been ready. God had to bring me through more things, and he had to stretch and mold me and squeeze that oil that was needed in order for me to be able to walk fully into the calling that he gave me, into being able to run this home. And it just, I know that whenever we hear things from God that is exciting, we want it to happen now. We want it to happen when we want it to happen. But God is not that. He's not that kind of God. He's not going to let you walk into something that you're not fully and 100% prepared for. He's not. He's not going to do that. You know, God doesn't call the qualified. He qualifies the called. So he calls you and then he qualifies you in that process. I know people don't like the process. It's hard. It sucks, right? But in that process, there are certain situations and circumstances that qualify you to be able to do exactly what God called you to do. Not that long ago, a few weeks ago, I guess, it was said to me that my Miranda's Place was happening. And I didn't fully grasp it at that moment. I didn't fully, it hadn't really sunk in, I guess. And I was in awe, and I couldn't believe what I was hearing in that moment, but I don't think it fully sunk in. I don't think it fully registered in my mind what was happening. And then a little bit of time passed, and I had reached out to a few, people and friends, and, just I can't even talk. I had made a post on Facebook, and I had said, like, Miranda's Place has a home, and, we need such and such in order to make this happen, to be able to fully transition into it. Sorry guys, my nose itches. And somebody donated the money that was needed in that moment, to be able to really transition into it. We still need monthly sponsors. We still need people to be able to contribute monthly, to be able to sustain this home, and to be able to get this, to keep the home running. Yesterday, I filed the 501c3 paperwork for Miranda's Place, and I've literally I've sat and I've cried, and I've cried, and I've cried, because, as I said, there was moments where I doubted myself, moments where I doubted if it was even going to happen, not because I doubted God, but because I doubted my ability to hear him and my ability to be able to do such a thing. And, God is faithful, and God is mighty, and he is a way maker and a provider. And I still have those moments of, is this really happening? Like, somebody pinch me, like, is this really happening? And it's really happening. Like, something that I prayed for almost 8 years, something that I doubted in moments, is really happening. Like, God is opening Miranda's Place. Women who have dealt with domestic violence and sex trafficking are going to have a place to go to, a safe place to go to, where they can heal and walk in their identity of who Christ says they are, and not who their abuser or who their trafficker says, but who God says they are, and be able to walk in the authority that God gave them. Through my lived experience and through the things that God gave me, I'm going to be able to walk alongside these women with the house mom that God so graciously gave me many years ago. And I remember me and her talking about this, how we were talking about how we were going to be doing this together, and she was going to be with me, walking it out with me. And here we are 3 years later, and it's happening. And so I just want to encourage you that no matter how long it takes, no matter if it doesn't happen when you want it to happen, You keep walking. You keep believing. And you keep knowing that God doesn't lie. He doesn't lie. Things happen on his time and not yours. Because he has a reason. He has to make sure that we're ready. Make sure that we're ready and make sure that we're fully equipped for it. Don't think that that dream is too big. I even had somebody tell me, well, that sounds like it's a lot. That's just a lot. You know what I mean? That dream was a little too big for them. But I was like, well, that's okay, because you don't have to get that vision. You don't have to understand that vision, because God gave it to me, not you. And that's okay. That's okay. Not everybody's going to understand it. Not everybody's going to get it. Not everybody's going to grasp it. But that's okay. You hold on to it. You hold on to that vision, and you believe with everything in you. You believe. Will you have moments of doubt? Probably. Will you have moments of questioning yourself? Probably. But if God told you that something was going to happen, you better believe it's going to happen. Don't you give up on that. Don't you walk away. There was moments where I'm like, oh, you know what? I've tried. I've walked it out. Moments where I just wanted to throw my hand up and be like, you know what? Maybe this wasn't meant for me to do. Maybe this wasn't it. And I am so thankful that I didn't give up. So thankful I didn't give up. So thankful that I continued to walk one foot in front of the other. Sometimes it was baby steps. Sometimes there was big steps. Sometimes all I could do was just stand there. That's it. Was just stand there. But I want you to know that giving up is definitely not going to get you there. Some seasons are slow. Some seasons you have to take a bunch of baby steps. Other seasons you take a bunch of big giant steps. Other seasons you just got to stand there and just dive deep into that relationship with God and let him just do the rest. I'm here to tell you that God can and will do anything. You just got to trust him and continue to put one foot in front of the other. This has been a 7.5-year long prayer with tears and doubt and screams and yells at the top of my lungs, because I'm feeling the heaviness of it not happening, and the heaviness of the doubt and the thoughts from the enemy and the naysayers and all the things that I felt and heard and seen and all of the stuff. But I continued to push forward. I continued to move. I continued to talk about it and speak about it. And I continued to claim it and know that it's going to happen when God says it is. And I had to let go of it. I had to be like, okay, God, I'm going to take that control that I'm trying to have with this thing. I'm going to take it and I'm going to give it back to you. I'm going to give control to you, and it's going to look like, it's going to be where and with who and when you say it is. And I had to let go of that because it was starting to consume me, because it wasn't happening when I thought it was going to happen or how I thought it was going to happen. And it began to really consume me and start to distract me and devastate me and all of those kinds of things. And so I had to give God that control back. So my friend, if there's something that you've been waiting on that God told you was going to happen, but it hasn't happened yet, and you're starting to doubt it, give that control back to God. Tell him, God, I give this back to you. I take my timeline off of it. I take my way off of it. I take everything that I'm trying to control about it. I take it and I give it to you. I place it at your feet, and you can have it. I trust you. I know that your timing is way better than mine could ever be. And just let it go. Let it be there. When he tells you to do something that's pertaining to that vision or that dream that he gave you, do it. But don't try to control how and when and where and why it happens. Because it's not up to you to do that. It's God's. It's God's vision. It's God's dream. It's God's thing. He just chose you to be the steward of it here on earth. So give him back control. Let him do it. How and when and where he's ready. And with who. because you trying to control it is not going to do anything but want you to give up. God wouldn't have gave you that dream and that vision if he didn't know you could do it, if he didn't call you and create you to do it. When he's ready for it to happen, it'll happen. But until then, let him qualify you, because that's what he's trying to do. Trust him. Trust his ways. Trust his timing. And let go of everything else. Don't listen to the naysayers. Don't listen to the people that doubt you. And if you have a bunch of people around you that all they do is talk negative every time you speak about this dream, every time you speak about this vision, it's time for you to get some new people in your circle. It's important that you have people in your circle that believes your dream, your vision with you, even more than you do at times. Because we'll have those seasons. We'll have those moments. That's why it's important to have people in your life that encourage you and pick you back up in your hard seasons, in that waiting. Don't you get tired in the waiting. Don't you get weary in the waiting. You stay faithful and steadfast in that waiting, and watch what God can do. Watch what he can do. He's going to blow your mind. I know it. I personally know it. Because there was moments where I just wasn't sure. And now I'm standing in a season to where Miranda's Place is literally about to open. Miranda's Place has a 501c3. Miranda's Place has people that are wanting to support. It can happen in your life too. You just have to trust God with that timing and take your timeline off. Get rid of it. Throw it in the trash. And be okay with not knowing when. Because trusting God and having that faith means that you're okay with the unknown. His ways are way better than you could ever possibly think of. I really hope this encouraged someone today that's struggling in the wait. Stay steadfast, stay faithful in the waiting, and trust God with it. He's got you. He's never going to leave you nor forsake you. And it's going to happen when it's supposed to happen. God bless you. Remember, you're awesome, you're amazing, and you walk in authority.